Yeah. This is just a public, comment, isn't it? I want to thank everyone for attending this special meeting today. We'll go ahead and get started. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Mr. Tisdale, second by Mr. Lawrence. Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carries. Mayor's report? No report. Okay. Council report? No report. No report. Mr. Barrett, no report. I have no report. Clerk would read the public agenda topic.
Public hearing to provide the general public with an opportunity to comment on the proposed budget for fiscal year 22-23.
All right. But we'll go ahead and open it up for any discussion on the council first, and then we'll move on to citizens' comments. Any discussion from the council?
Want to open it? Does the mayor want to have a presentation? The mayor presentation?
Mayor, you want to do a presentation on the budget, or you got any opening remarks on the budget?
No, I would, we're prepared. I think all the suggestions and everything that was made at the last meeting was incorporated in what you see here. Again, as we're looking for the, I guess, the combined operations, this is right where we, I think, need to be as far as expenses and revenues, and it puts us in a reasonable situation as far as reserves. Again, everybody here today, that we were looking at some possibilities in October, like we did last year when we passed about a 5.75% raise. Again, that would be what we'll look at after October 1, and we are in a little bit more reasonable position on what we could do for the next 18 months, and I think that's what we're banking on at this point in time.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. Any other remarks from the City Council?
Yeah, the goal of the mayor, something we need to do is invest in employees in the city. Looking at 3 or 4% raise, and put in a motion as fast as we can. You said he's going to do that, so I expect you to.
I said we were going to look at it at October 1 through September, just like we did last year.
I mean, you got to make a move. You have to do something for the rest of the employees in the city. Something we got to look at.
So we're doing the same thing we did last year in October 1. That's what we're doing. We're going to make some direct moves on this budget and the police department, and that's what we did. Now, the rest of the city employees can look forward to us examining what we need to be, where we need to be, and we'll take that action. But right now, at this point, we need more financial, information in order to move it forward.
Also, we're definitely looking at the council, so we're trying to top that, make sure something one way or the other. And the other problem, did you ever get the number straight with the CPA?
15th.
Okay, I mean, well, it took so long. If they found the number that quick, what's the problem that you couldn't just correct the number?
It's all part of the audit. It's going to be a prior period adjustment, so another report is not going to be issued.
I mean, if the number found that out, I'm sure they're taking about 3 months to find how to correct it.
Right, but it's all going to be part of the final report for 2021.
All right, but I'm just saying, they found it pretty quick, so it looked like we could have adjusted that pretty quick.
We identified it pretty quick, I think.
Right, so when you're ready to find a number, and you CPA, you got to correct these numbers pretty quick. That's pretty big for us since we're doing the budget.
Well, I think in just a few days away, those numbers will be revealed. The corrections to the construction and what's the other term? CIP balance sheet items.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I wish we'd already have all the numbers corrected, so. Thank you.
Anyone else have any comments?
I have a ton of questions.
All right.
Throw something up there. You ready?
I'm ready. Go ahead. Mr. Tisdale?
Several things, Mr. Mayor. Is it possible to put up the non-departmentals sheet on the big screen? Do you have any way to do that? If not, it's not the end of the world. I mean, I'm just thinking it would help for the folks sitting out there to kind of follow see some of the numbers and follow what we're doing. Great, but you email it. But I will start with my questions. In looking through the
history of the budget workshops, I noticed Cruising the Coast is now up to $25,000. Typically, we contribute $20,000. And I see that's increased another $5,000. Is there any reason for that increase?
It's based on what somebody asked for at the last meeting. And everything that was done, everything that was asked for was put in here.
And maybe I missed something. Did somebody?
I think it was a request for it to be increased $5,000.
Thomas the Towers, I recall there was a request there, and I see that's been added for $5,000. Main Street, that's $30,000, and I don't recall seeing that figure before. I think the last series of workshops, it was like at $10,000.
I think I think we researched that and we got into, Wilson, Main Street and the porta potties and some of those things that they use on First. I think we added up. You don't have to pay it as we've been in before. So we switched it from part of the expense to your expense and they take care of it.
So what was our actual contribution to Main Street this year, or the revised, not the actual?
20,000.
20,000, so we're adding some to that for something associated with basically First Friday.
That's right, 10 First Fridays, that's right.
All right. There's a KCPC Workforce Development.
Yeah, that was the
coding
PCs was another SARS on the, this was added.
That was what Felix added.
Felix added 10,000, or it was 10,000 discussed.
That's for our Mother of Sorrows.
Yeah. It was for electrical, some of the crafts that they've been engaged with, and that's going to position them to get some additional matching money.
Okay, and some of these things have been added to the budget, but I don't know because I don't know kind of how that works on the budget end. We talked about a budget wellness incentive for about $200, possibly $300 per employee, and if so, if we did.
We didn't add that into that, but that's part of the compensation package that we would actually address in October.
Actually, I called the state auditor's office on that, and he recommended that we get an attorney general opinion before we move forward with that.
Okay, can we make a note of that?
I spoke with Peter. I believe he will be handling that.
Beg your pardon?
I spoke with Peter. He will be handling that.
Do we know when you might be handling that, Peter?
The opinion.
Just want to get some details on what the inquiry is, and I'll get that out.
Right, and generally what we're trying to do is encourage our employees to get their wellness checks. If there's some way we can do that, this is how we'd like to incent that, if there's any way to do that. I know it may be a matter of wordsmithing, but it would be helpful. We talked about pay raises for sworn officers. Would that be effective October 1st or January 1st?
October 1st. October 1st.
October 1st. And if I understood you correctly, we're looking at the possibility of raises for the remainder of the employees. We'll be looking through the figures that first quarter in fiscal year 2023 and make a determination, I would assume somewhere around the end of November, first part of December, and then make that effective January 1 of 2023?
Be the idea.
Okay. I've asked about police vehicles, adding 3 or 4 more in 2023. I don't know if that was, did we add it?
We did the 15 that was discussed at the last point, at the last meeting was
Right, so
added.
there are no additional added.
Not to
Set it on 15, that's where we are. Okay, and given the fact that we're going to be looking at a possible pay raise, we could use that money for pay raises. There you go. Good night.
Get the money, we can use it.
All right, Station 5, the Fire Station 5, the design cost, we said is in the budget somewhere for fiscal year 23?
No, it's not in the budget at this point because are we going to engage, I think, the folks to give us some determination? Okay. Well, we need to be in a good, better situation. I've engaged along those lines of 200, 300,000. We've discussed some loans and some other issues. We have issues that we'll classify in addition to this construction we're talking about. So we may be able to wrap the package not only for 5, but across the board, as well as some of the rehab. I think the chiller that we talked about, my idea was to SMPDD, how many Ds in it, 2 Ds, to handle that, and would finance it over the course of a number of years, not just all the one.
I'd just like to see the design rolling in fiscal year '23, and hopefully maybe some construction or modification would be done in 2024. The sooner the better.
I think, Chief, I think you brought some attention to some other building issues, and that I would attack that by classifying what we need to do with significant dollars that we would ask SMPDD to assist us with in rehab of those stations and other things like that.
Yes, sir. So, like we said, with Station 5, we just got today. In fact, Mark Williams sent me the estimate from Starks, which is significantly more than we expected, a couple of years ago when we first started this. And then there's the design cost. I've sent all that over just recently. We also are looking at some old issues in a couple stations that we need to get fixed due to one reason or another. There's several different reasons. We also have some rehab on a couple of the older stations, like Station 4 right there on Veterans Avenue.
Well, our thought is, whether it's another addition, we're looking at 1.5 to 2 million for 5, but then there may be another million or $700,000 or $800,000 to address those. I would wrap that all up and look at a long-term financing situation, almost like the fire trucks.
Yes, sir.
Well, I'd just like us to keep, we've got a little traction on Station 5. I'd like to keep moving forward with that and get it going as soon as possible. The SAFER grant is in the budget, but if we don't get the SAFER grant, and more often than not we don't, some years we do, some years we don't, but if we don't get it, those additional firefighters, that money's pulled out of the fire department budget, obviously, because that's federal money, correct? A grant. Okay. Do we know when we'll hear about that SAFER grant?
It could have been as early. I've been talking back and forth with our grant writer for probably the past month or so. She said the federal government has trickled out maybe a handful of actual grant awards throughout the nation. She's expecting in the next month, maybe November at the latest, but it could be later than that. So there's really no idea on when that award will be, considering that we're waiting on the federal government.
So, all right, I'm just going to make a note 6 to 8 weeks. I'll check with her later on that and see how it goes. Street sweeping, I'd ask that we increase the street sweeping budget from 25,000 to 50, or so. That was done. Did we bump it up to what, 50,000? Okay, thank you for that. Pennzoil Park, I know you're tired of hearing me say Pennzoil Park, but you keep saying bond issue. That's what we're looking at, for Pennzoil Park and the Snyder Center.
And other pieces of recreational equipment will be part of that,
Okay.
Oh, look, Snyder Center repair would be in a rehab mode situation, wouldn't be from the bond.
Okay. We've got an increase in the garbage fee, and that's coming up tonight. But then we also have, just to remind everybody, we've got this last increase in the water fee goes up October 1, so there's a little bump there for everybody across the board. Our carryover, we're still looking at $7.5 million carryover from this year to the next fiscal year.
Cash position at the end of October, or beginning of October, we'll project, I guess, 7.5 million.
Okay.
But that's not fund balance, but that's cash.
Okay. Last question on the bond issue. When will you be sharing how you want to spend those bond dollars?
Shortly. I'll give you a
shorter. How you will be expecting?
I'll give you a recap again.
Okay.
As we rolled out and went through, and it was 14 million in total. 7 was for the anticipated position with expansion of Pops Ferry Road. Half was infrastructure, 7 million. Another 7 million was primarily 6 million or so with in the recreation area. Another 200,000 for pickleball. What was left was going to be spread in the recreation, situation. Those things that were over in just a couple of years in life cycle, we're going to spread that over. So I think that was generally it. 6.1 million, 200,000, remainder for Pennzoil, not all Pennzoil, but the other thing. So that's about 7 million in that. 7 million in the infrastructure part of the deal, so we could actually use that to match up with approximately 28 million in projects that we've got in the portal. And we're, doing, investigating on how we can match up whatever we need to match up. The good news on the expansion, we received, I think our position is 3.9 instead of 7 million right now because of other grants and participations.
Thank you,
So
Mayor.
we have a little room to play with the infrastructure and some other projects.
All right, dehumidifier, that's the word of the day, dehumidifier, Snyder. Thank you, that concludes my question.
Thank you, Councilman. Mayor, I just want to follow up. So with the bond and what you just said, how we're going to allocate those funds, 7 and 6 or what have you, and if we get grants and other sources of income, that will reduce the, I guess, the amount of the bond money for those projects if we get matching funds or other grants that we can reallocate to other projects.
It's part of the reservoir of funding, I guess, where we look at it. We've got at least $30 million, and we've driven, the wards to kind of look at what your top priorities are. So we'll use every bit of resource, whether it's grants. The more we get help with regard to extension of Pops Ferry, we may have, an additional $1 or $2 million that could be spread on the projects we, ridden around with.
All right, if there's no other comments, I'd like to open it up. You have a comment?
Briefly.
Mr. Barrett?
Over the last, I guess, 6 weeks or so, we've had, I guess, 5 or 6 extra meetings, and I think that we have a lot of good things in this budget. We were able to take care of everyone who came to us and asked, something that we haven't been able to do in the past. I think it's great. I think that, first of all, Biloxi is the greatest city in the state of Mississippi. And I think it's great. We had the best first responders. I think it's great that we're able to give our police department a raise. However, I believe that and I've said this multiple times, across the board, like Mr. Lawrence said, we need to take care of all of our employees, but especially our police department, our public works, and our fire department, I believe are deserving all of a raise. Our neighbors across the bay last year gave a 6.2% raise across the board, and this year they're giving an 8.6% raise across the board to anyone who makes under $70,000, and anyone who makes over $70,000, they're giving 4.5%. And I believe, being the greatest city in the state of Mississippi, to stay competitive, we're going to have to step up and play ball. And so, like I said, I believe there's a lot of good in this budget, a whole lot of good. But I do believe that we need to, if we can't give it to all of our employees, I believe at least Public Works, we're suffering majorly in Public Works, at least our Public Works and Fire Department. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments before we open it up to
Yes.
citizens' comments?
I want to piggyback off Nathan. I feel the same way. I've said the same thing every year, pretty much, though. In the beginning years, we were cutting every budget 10%, and I was against the budget then. We're not necessarily doing that now. However, I feel very strongly, and I've said this year and year, before we start giving money to non-departmentals, I feel like we should be taking care of our own instead of, if we're not in a good place to help our own, then we shouldn't be giving money to all these non-departmentals, especially events and things like this. But I think, of course, all of our employees need a pay raise, especially with inflation. Everybody's hurting, I get that. But especially the police, fire, public works, parks and recreation, everywhere I look lately, it's like we're living in a third world country, and it's embarrassing, and we're all getting beat up, and it's hard to entice new businesses when it looks like a third world country. Obviously, the problem is we can't get the help. So obviously, we need to help our own, basically. And of course, public safety is very important. It's obviously a must and should be compensated accordingly, as well as we need to do whatever we can do to get enough employees to, get the city running like it was before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Last word.
Mr. Mayor, I think that one of my biggest concerns is the amount of productivity that we've experienced this year, and lack thereof. And I know it's not your fault. We've seen contractors, because of the state compensation rates, refuse to pour asphalt, refuse to do anything. We've discussed this during the contract, and I'm glad to hear some of your your creative solutions to getting some paving, some concrete, and some work done. However, I do want to express the same thing that I expressed during the council meetings regarding the firemen's pay. When we talked about raising the police, I questioned why we're not discussing that about the firemen. One of the things that we did was we discussed the competitive nature of hiring for police officers, and I asked what it's going to take for us to entice somebody that's a first year or a second year to bring them in. Since discussing that, I've talked with some members from the fire department, and I've learned that we have numerous men and well, I don't want to exclude anyone, numerous people in the fire department that are at the retirement period. We could lose a significant portion of active personnel. We also have people that are applying to other municipalities. For example, Moss Point is outpacing us with their compensation packages. So I question, again, as I did during this budget process, why we're not looking towards becoming more financially competitive and attractive to potential new firemen. We need to bring more boots into the cycle. We're going to lose a lot here with these men and women that are prepared to retire. So I know that we're kind of up against the back wall right now, but through this process, this fiscal year, we need to find a way to leverage up the value of our fire department.
If I can respond, you won't get an argument out of me. We've always been in a situation where we need to be the best in every location, in every operation. Again, in just a few weeks, we're not going to wait till October to begin looking at this. We're going to look at numbers that are coming in the next 5 or 10 days that are going to give us a position. Again, revenues is a big part of the equation, okay? And we're trying to get a handle on that to maintain our reserves and some of those things that are important to the business of the city. Chief Miller will tell you right now that even the word of that situation has had a positive impact. Again, when October comes around, the next numbers in the next couple of weeks come around, we'll be in a position, first of all, to match revenues with expenses ongoing year by year by year, took a 5-year plan, and as well as what has to take place year after year after year when these things happen. And of course, recourse. We're very fortunate with regard to revenues. And again, maintain those reserves that we're very successful. I guess the financial folks are very pleased with how we've been, doing the financial look and outlook of the city. I'm not going to, we're going to be going full steam, once we get this thing passed, to look at the numbers as they come in, to say we're in a position to maintain the strength of the city and compensate our employees the best we can.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to conclude also to echo some of the sentiment, especially for first responders, police, fire, and our public works. Those are key cogs in what we do, and everybody has expressed that. I'm not going to rehash that. That goes without saying. The other departments are very important too. Parks and Rec with our youth, and all the other departments. So I think we've worked hard with our due diligence with this budget with the mayor. I trust the mayor's office, just as we did last time, that we will look at it hard and make sure that those revenues, expenses are in check, and then come up with a plan to compensate our city workers. And I got just the highest belief that we can make that happen. I'd like to open it up. This is a public hearing.
The mayor, one question. On column 5, there's $11 million. What is ARPF on column 5?
ARPA money. That's the $11 million that we got for ARPA, American Recovery Plan. What's the A? I don't know what the last that. American Rescue Plan Act. That's the $11 million that we received in the last year from the federal government.
I just want to make sure that was representing that $698,000, pretty good bit of money. I like that.
Yeah, I'd like to get it every year.
I like that.
Wouldn't be a problem with right?
Thank you, Councilman. I want to get to everyone who's patiently waiting that wants to speak on the budget. That's what this special meeting is for. When you raise your hand, I'll call on one side of the room or the other. When you raise your hand to be recognized, come up to the front, state your name and your address for the record, and we'd like to speak toward the budget. Okay? Anyone on my left? Raise your hand if you'd like to come up and speak or ask anything about this budget, make any comments. Anybody on my right? Yes, sir.
Okay. As I said, my name's Stephen Dunaway. Good evening. I'm also Captain Stephen Dunaway with the Biloxi Fire Department. You can see all the red shirts behind me, and you know what they're here for. All of you have addressed it. Mr. Mayor, you've already brought it up, and we know that you guys are not against us. I'd like to start out by saying that. But the guys wanted me to come up here and speak on their behalf, so every one of them doesn't talk for 3 minutes, and y'all aren't here until 11 o'clock tonight. I'm going to do 3 minutes on their behalf. They wanted me to hit a few high points and try to bring a few things to your attention, some of which you're already aware of. First, thank you for letting me speak. We recognize that doing a budget this city and it's complex and it's a difficult task, and we appreciate what you all do. It's come to the attention of the fire departments, the employees there, that the new budget recommendations, as you've already spoken of tonight, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but the new fiscal year has already been made to the council, and it's our understanding, as we spoke about, that the proposal there's no recommendation for the fire department to receive any type of raise. I made these notes before you all spoke. Let me tell you, give you a few reasons why you should reconsider this. The duties, responsibilities, and educational requirements of the firefighters in the city of Biloxi continue to increase. In recent years, all new firefighters that hire on the department are required to become emergency medical technicians, or EMTs. The same thing that's riding on the ambulances that work for AMR. AMR has become increasingly strapped in their personnel that they have working, and their response times have slowed down. So the fire department has stepped up and filled in the gap by becoming certified to the level that the ambulance is as paramedics, advanced paramedics, and EMTs. That wasn't what we initially hired on to do. We've embraced it, and we welcome that training, and we welcome the service that we're providing to the citizens. But it's a big thing to maintain that level of proficiency in education and keep all of our certifications up and step up and take up all those new tasks. We used to fight a lot more fire in the city than we do now. 25 years ago, when I hired on, we were running fires all the time. Thanks to our fire prevention department, that doesn't happen so much anymore. What we're primarily doing right now is we're providing medical service for the city while still covering other types of emergencies. The police department is doing a super important thing, and we love them. They're our brothers and our sisters, and we don't want to take away from anything that they've got going on, and we don't want to try to take any money away from them. That's not our goal. All we're saying is that in the middle of the night at 2 o'clock in the morning in a drive in the rain, when they're there, we are also there. And when your children have an accident and they're trapped in a tore up car, we're right there beside the police department cutting them out. We're responding to the same emergencies. And the guys back there just want to be afforded the same respect and be given the same consideration. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else out of the room? Anyone in the back of the room? Anyone did I miss? All right. Citizen comments is now closed. Special meeting, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Tisdale. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lawrence. Any discussion? All in favor? Those opposed? We're adjourned. We'll take a brief